They fired me after 23 years, said I was too slow, too old school. Then they forged my signature, hired an unlicensed contractor, and tried to bury it under drywall. But I wasn't gone. I was watching. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I called the state. And when the inspectors came, 3 houses were red tagged, 2 careers were destroyed, and the company that threw me away begged me to come back because I wasn't just a name on paper. I was the code they broke, and I was the one who made sure they paid for it. My name is Cal Whitman, 52 years old, and until this morning, I was the senior compliance supervisor at Westmark Residential, the biggest residential builder in central Arizona. I'd been with them for 23 years. I built my career on one belief: if it's not safe, it's not finished. That belief didn't fit the new direction. The conference room smelled like cheap coffee and expensive ink. Derek Klein, the freshly appointed VP of Operations, stood at the head of the table. My usual seat. He didn't look at me when he spoke. Westmark is evolving. We're prioritizing agility, innovation, efficiency. Behind him stood Logan Price, a man who looked like he thought a hard hat was a fashion statement. He was 32, polished, and utterly inexperienced. Effective immediately, Logan will assume the role of compliance supervisor. No warning, no private meeting, no handshake before the knife. Logan stepped forward with a rehearsed smile, hand extended. I shook it, firm, silent. "Big shoes to fill," he said. I didn't respond, just nodded once and started packing my folder, my badge, and my nameplate. No ceremony. Out in the parking lot, the desert sun sat low over the half-finished Sunspire development. My last project. Lot 14 was due for final inspection next week. I'd reviewed every blueprint, every permit, every subcontractor's license myself. Logan would take it over tomorrow. I watched him from across the fence, pointing at structural supports he couldn't name, calling out notes to a foreman who didn't look up. He was using words like streamline, modularize, and turnkey. Not a single one of them meant safe. I sat in my truck for a long while staring at the site, the smell of concrete dust and fresh lumber clinging to the air. For 2 decades, I woke up at 5 a.m. to make sure families moved into homes that wouldn't collapse, catch fire, or kill their children in their sleep. Now I'd been replaced by someone who thought safety standards were a delay, not a duty. I turned the key in the ignition, but I didn't drive home, because something in my gut said this wasn't over. Not yet. 3 days after they boxed up my career, I was reorganizing tools in the garage when my phone buzzed. It was Eva, my wife of 19 years and city inspector for building safety. "Cal, are you still listed on the Sunspire permits?" I paused. "Not since Tuesday." "Why?" "Because a change order just came through the permit office. It's got your name on it, approving a new electrical contractor." I felt my pulse hitch. "Which contractor?" "Valley Core Electric." Never heard of them, and I never signed off on them. By noon, I was standing beside Eva's desk at the municipal building. She turned her monitor so I could see the digital form. My name typed neatly under the compliance supervisor field. My signature, or something close enough to pass a quick glance, scrawled at the bottom. The contractor info was worse. Valley Core Electric. License number A46522. Expired. Suspended last year. Multiple violations. "And the owner?" I asked. "Danny Krill. Revoked master electrician license. He's not even legally allowed to supervise." My stomach dropped. Lot 14 was due for electrical rough-in this week. "This is forgery," I said quietly. Eva printed everything. The change order, the license suspension, violation reports. I folded them into a file, tucked it under my arm, and walked out without saying another word. That night I didn't rage. I didn't call HR. I didn't scream at anyone. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, opened my old laptop, and I started building a case. Pulled old site photos from Sunspire, forwarded archived emails from my work account to a private drive, downloaded inspection schedules, contractor approval logs, and permit histories. I wasn't planning revenge. I was preparing evidence. Eva sat across from me, watching. "You sure you want to get involved again?" "They used my name, Ev, on a job I didn't touch. with a contractor who shouldn't even be wiring a coffee maker. You're not mad. No. I looked up at her. I'm responsible. I sent a quiet email to Margaret Taft, Director of State Compliance. Subject line, unauthorized approval, forged signature, suspended contractor, active residential project. Attached, everything. The last line of my message. If you're looking for who signed off, it wasn't me, but I'll help you find out who did. The Arizona State Construction Compliance Division sits in a bland office park behind a DMV and a faded Pizza Hut. I'd been there before, for code seminars and certification renewals, but this time, I wasn't there to learn. I was there to light a match. Margaret Taft, Director of Compliance, met me in a windowless room lined with case files and old blueprints. She was sharp-eyed, mid-50s, and built from the same material as reinforced concrete. "You brought documentation?" she asked, wasting no time. I slid the folder across the table. Forged change orders. A contractor with a suspended license. A project still listed as active. She flipped through the papers. Her face didn't change, but I saw her eyes narrow at the forged signature. "This license number was flagged 6 months ago," she said. "Worksite? Sunspire Development, lots 14 through 16. Are you still affiliated? Officially? Number unofficially? My name's on the paperwork they forged." She leaned back. "This triggers a mandatory inspection." I nodded once. "Good." She explained what would happen next. Unannounced inspectors, full permit reviews, a forensic signature analysis if necessary. If the contractor was on site working without a valid license, the entire development could be red tagged, shut down until further notice. "If walls need to come down, they come down," she said flatly. "And if they find more than one violation, then we start pulling threads." I sat silent for a long moment. "You'll need someone on site who knows what it's supposed to look like." Margaret looked at me. "You offering?" "I'm not trying to get my job back, but I won't let them bury wires that might kill a kid in his sleep." She nodded. "We'll bring you in as a site consultant." That night, Eva handed me a cup of coffee and leaned against the sink. "You did the right thing," she said. "Doesn't feel good." "It's not supposed to." I looked out the window toward the hills where a glow from the worksite still shimmered under floodlights. They thought I'd walk away quietly. They thought using my name meant I'd stay loyal. They forgot the first rule of construction. Everything you build is eventually exposed. 2 days later, just after sunrise, I was back at Sunspire. 3 white state vehicles lined the edge of the development, engines idling. Inspectors in orange vests clipped on radios and carried thick binders. Margaret Taft stepped out of her SUV and handed me a hard hat. "You know the layout," she said. "Walk us through what we're really looking at." Lot 14 was first. The drywall had gone up. Too fast. The electrical boxes were set crooked, wires twisted in bundles that violated 3 code sections on site alone. Grounding connections were missing entirely. Inspector Diaz shook his head. "This isn't bad. It's dangerous." We pulled the panel cover. Wire gauge didn't match the breaker amps. Unmarked splices. No GFCI protection where it was mandatory. "You sign off on any of this?" Diaz asked. "I was fired before they hired these guys." "Then someone's been busy with a pen." Lot 15 was worse. They'd already begun mudding the seams, hiding junctions that weren't capped. The kitchen had a microwave outlet run on a 15-amp line. Should have been 20. The service panel had scorch marks around the main lug. "If this gets energized," Margaret muttered, "the whole wall's a fire hazard." One of the inspectors photographed it all. "You said this contractor's license was suspended?" "Revoked," I corrected. "The guy who hired him? No field credentials either." Back at the site trailer, we found Logan Price waiting, suit sleeves rolled up, trying to look competent. Margaret didn't waste time. "Are you the approving supervisor for electrical installs at this site?" Well, yes, but I was told." "You personally verified contractor licensing?" "Danny gave me the documents. They looked legitimate." She pulled out a copy of the altered license. The expiration was changed with a pen. "You didn't notice that?" He swallowed. "I trusted him. That's not how this works." 3 red tags went up that morning. Work stopped. Contractors left mid-task. Inspectors locked the panels and sealed the permit boxes. I watched Logan stand there, pale, holding a clipboard he clearly didn't know how to use. As we walked back to the cars, Margaret turned to me. "We'll be issuing a formal violation report to Westmark's executive board." "Good. They'll ask for a remediation plan. Let me guess. You'll need someone familiar with the site and familiar with what code compliance actually means." Eva had packed my lunch in a cooler in the truck. She knew I'd be gone all day. I sat on the tailgate, unwrapped a sandwich, and stared at the houses I once helped design, now gutted by greed and shortcuts. They replaced me with a face that smiled better in meetings. Now he'd be remembered as the reason the state shut the job down. 3 weeks after the red tags went up, I was back inside Westmark's headquarters, but this time not as an employee. The executive boardroom was packed. 3 corporate suits flown in from Denver, 2 attorneys, an insurance auditor, and Derek Klein, the man who replaced me without a handshake, now seated at the far end of the table with a face that looked like it hadn't slept in days. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Margaret Taft stood at the front of the room, projecting quiet authority as she walked them through the report. 3 active lots shut down, 14 documented violations, forged signatures, unlicensed contractor, altered permits. Each line hit like a hammer. The total cost of the delay? $520,000, not including potential buyer lawsuits. A corporate lawyer finally raised his hand. "We just want to understand, how did this happen?" Margaret opened a slim folder labeled C. Whitman. "Until recently, Westmark had one of the most respected compliance records in the state. 0 violations, 2 city commendations. That changed the day Curtis Whitman was replaced by someone with no field experience who approved fake licenses." Everyone looked at me. Derek shifted, opened his mouth. "We were implementing new efficiency protocols." Margaret didn't blink. "You were cutting corners. And when those corners collapsed, you blame paperwork." Silence. The insurance rep typed numbers into a spreadsheet like he was drafting a eulogy. Then Margaret continued. "The state is prepared to lift the red tags if the company retains Mr. Whitman as project compliance lead through remediation." A pause. The Denver execs looked at each other, then to me. "Would you accept that position, Mr. Whitman?" one of them asked. I leaned back, measured. "On one condition, I don't report to Derek." He didn't even argue. Margaret added, "We also recommend Mr. Klein's removal. We found internal emails where he encouraged overlooking bid requirements to stay competitive." One of the suits nodded. Another made a note. "That won't be a problem." By the time I left the boardroom, Derek's desk had already been cleared. Logan Price, terminated. He'd padded his resume, misrepresented his certifications, and greenlit work that could have burned 3 homes to the ground. As for me, I was back on the job, but this time I had something better than a title. I had authority, not just from Westmark, from the state. Eva met me in the parking lot with a quiet smile. "So, how'd it go?" "Let's just say they finally realized the cost of cutting me loose." She handed me a cold drink. "About time." 6 months later, I was in my new office. Same company, different title. Regional Director of Compliance. 4 projects under my watch. Full authority, and a salary that made up for every corner they once tried to cut. I still arrived before sunrise. Some habits don't break. I'd walk the sites with my clipboard, same old boots, same sharp eye. Contractors greeted me differently now. Not just with respect, but relief. They knew I wouldn't let a rushed deadline bury a safety hazard inside someone's future bedroom wall. They knew I gave a damn. That afternoon, Eva stopped by with Rebecca, our daughter. 17 now, taller than I remember, asking smarter questions than some of my junior engineers. She looked around the site trailer. "This is yours now? The office, the crew, the final sign-offs?" "Yeah." She grinned. "Even the kids in my engineering class know what happened at Sunspire. They're still talking about the red tags." I chuckled. "Not exactly the legacy I planned." "Maybe not, but it's one that matters." Margaret Taft sent me a message that same morning. Krill pled guilty to contractor fraud. 6 months county jail, permanent license revocation. The state appreciates your cooperation. Justice, quiet and clean. Just how I liked it. As for Logan Price, last I heard he was selling home warranties in Tucson. His LinkedIn said former operations executive. No mention of Westmark. No mention of forged licenses. No mention of me. Typical. And Derek Klein? Gone. Corporate never made a public statement, but everyone inside knew. When you cost the company $500,000 trying to innovate, the board doesn't give you a second chance. They give you a cardboard box. On the drive home that evening, Rebecca asked a question. Do you ever feel bad about how it ended for them? I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. They made choices. I made sure people saw what those choices cost. She nodded. My engineering professor says people who do things right the first time don't get noticed. That's okay, I said. I didn't do it to be noticed. She smiled. Still, revenge with code compliance? That's pretty badass. Eva laughed from the front seat. That's your father. We passed the Sunspire development on the way home. 3 families were living there now, in homes that had been rewired, re-inspected and certified down to the last outlet. No fires, no failures, no fakes, just good work.